Building Literacy in Social Studies is a great book by Donna Ogle, Ron Klemp, and Bill McBride. And they have lots of great tools that teachers can use in order to pass the EdTPA. There's also, to be a good teacher and whatnot. Okay, so in order to create good lesson plans, we need to have standards for reading and English language arts. And so some of those include what you see right here in blue, the key ideas and details to read closely, to make logical inferences, and to cite specific textual evidence. And for the EdTPA, this can be included in the introduction or anticipatory set, how to introduce a lesson and build on prior knowledge and prior learning. And so one of the examples that this book has is previewing, which helps connect to prior knowledge with familiarity, curiosity, and the desire to know more. When you preview something, I like the comparison to looking at a menu or walking past a restaurant and smelling the delicious smells that come from a restaurant. Often I find that if I see those pictures and smell those smells, I crave that food. Even if I've just completed a meal, I'll still want to eat more because it looks so enticing. And that's kind of what previewing is for education as well. So for example, if we were to preview a textbook, then that will help us anticipate what is coming, what we're going to learn by reading the textbook. And if we were to preview a chapter, we would look at headings or bold words, images, vignettes of people, whatever is in the chapter that kind of stands out, and that helps us. It's like an appetizer for our brains, and this will help us crave those delicious ideas that will come out of the chapter. So this can take care of or kind of cover the ELA standards and the ELD, the English Language Development Standards, as a collaborative work. And in the EdTPA, again, this is part of the anticipatory set, or can be part of the anticipatory set, the hook, or the connections to prior knowledge. So one example they have in the book, by the way, the menu idea and the appetizers, that's something that I've been using for many years and did not come in this book, but it made me think about it immediately when I saw this. So one example that they have in the book is the table of contents scavenger hunt, which I thought was really interesting. So they have questions and they start easier and they become a little bit more complex, and it helps students look at the table of contents and think about what's coming. So how many chapters are in the textbook? That's a really easy question, but it gets them started. And then you go down to in which chapter will you find the Declaration of Independence? And why is it called a primary source? And so obviously in the table of contents, this information will be provided. I would also probably add a question about the glossary so that students could find where the glossary is and maybe the index, because that's a really important place to look as well. So I would probably add a few questions about those topics as well. And this can be done, the book suggests that it's done in pairs or in groups, and then to review together. And that's how we get with the standards, the collaborative ELD standards and the ELA standards as well. Another way to make predictions and to connect to prior knowledge is with vocabulary. So before reading or before a lecture or before the lesson, students can share background knowledge, and in this way the teacher can assess what students already know. So one way to do that is by having students write out a list of what they know about a topic or terms or ideas. I did this last semester with China when we started a unit on East Asia. I asked students to list anything that they knew about China, and we discussed that list briefly just to get a little taste, a little flavor of what was coming. And then in previewing and predicting, Students could use the text's key terms, any words that are bolded, a list of academic language, and either guess what the words are and work on that, look them up, or as the lesson goes along, they fill in the definitions. The book suggests practicing with word games. I really like the idea of having students look at the Latin and Greek roots, because that I think will be more valuable than simply seeing the words repeatedly. If I don't know what a word is, learning how to do it in a crossword or a word search probably is not going to help me as much. Maybe a word search with the definition, that could be another story. But this site down here, vocabulary.com, has fill in the blanks, definition matches, synonym, antonyms, etc. And the Latin and Greek roots are such an awesome and powerful way to help students learn vocabulary that can be found in so many places, including those standardized exams that they're going to have to do at certain points. For an inquiry-based lesson plan, which is what we do in the social sciences, the book recommends an eye chart, and basically this helps students understand how different authors interpret and present information. So students can select the main topic and other inquiry questions, or the teacher can, but in order to help make it an inquiry-based lesson that is student-centered, a really great way to include and excite students is by having them select the topic. And then they leave room in this chart for sources, 3 different sources, and a summary. So for example, students can pick a group or person who influenced World War I, or a Cold War era conflict, or battle, or an environmental topic, whatever it is that, whatever unit you are working on, students can pick something from that unit to do a little bit more research on. In this case, they picked Amelia Earhart, so here's the main topic, and then what happened to her, what evidence has been found, what kind of airplane did she fly, interesting facts, and new questions. And here's what we know. So what students know already for sure, they add here to answer all of these questions, and then what do the 3 sources have to say? And then here the summary is kind of their conclusion. This could be done, they suggest, as small group work, and I would think this can be completed within a segment, within a week or so, maybe even less, within a couple days, depending on the types of sources that are provided. And I would assume that the teacher would look at the sources to make sure that they are legitimate. Another really awesome idea is to help students determine the main idea of a text. And these are short texts, like a half a page or so long. For the EdTPA, this would be focused instruction, as in teacher modeling, plus the guided instruction, the student practice. So the tools could be used include a read aloud and a Q&A graphic organizer, and pairs can answer this together. So students would start out, or actually the teacher would start out by turning the heading of the text into a question. So perhaps rather than if the heading is the causes of World War I, then we could change that to what were the causes of World War I. And that helps students think about what they're going to find out. And then the 5 W's here. So the teacher could pick a student to be a partner, and the student would read the text, and the teacher would fill in these 5 W's on the graphic organizer. And then they would switch so that the teacher would read the text and the student would continue to fill out this graph. Obviously, or this chart, obviously there's more than one who involved almost always. And the what, these are all interpretive questions, so there won't be one right answer, there'll probably be several answers. And then they write the main ideas down at the bottom here. Maybe the teacher would ask for volunteers, and then they practice later with another reading, and they can fill that in on the other part here with the next reading. The EdTPA also focuses on differentiation and providing scaffolds for the students, and this can be connected with ELD standards. The multiple views of a topic can help students move from a novice reader to an expert reader and thinker. So, of course, we want to scaffold with easy readings and or visuals, film clips, short quotes, graphs, charts. Cartoons are some of my favorite things to work with because they're pretty easy to understand most of the time and are visually exciting and interesting. And then we move to harder texts. And at this point, it is likely that students will do a much better job of interpreting those harder texts if they are provided with easy things to access the information first. This helps them breed or build prior knowledge, and they build familiarity with content and key vocabulary. One way to provide differentiation is by having the students select articles at 3 different reading levels. So a teacher would provide 3 different readings. Students can look at them and pick which one they want to read. And then they would annotate and share key points with others who read the same article. And then maybe they go back to their original group and they share those articles with their group members as a jigsaw, and then lastly discuss with the class. And this is a really great way for students to collaborate, which is an ELD standard, and through oral collaborative discussions, and this helps them justify opinions as well. And then just a couple of other really great ideas that I couldn't leave out include cooperative literacy. The authors recommend groups of 4 to 5 people for 4 to 6 weeks, and this will help them build community. And then they become kind of a team. Each seat has a number, 1 through 4, or maybe 1 through 5, and the teacher can call on the numbers. For example, all 2s, please come up and get the materials. All 3s, please stand and share your definition or your answer. Or if you want to, you can talk about the group or the table itself. Group 3, please clean up the area around your desk. And this allows students to work together, and it helps build community rather than singling someone out. And maybe each member is assigned a role for a certain project or assignment. Someone will be a questioner, someone else will be a reader, a recorder, a reporter, whatever the roles are. And those assigned roles can be switched for the next assessment. And maybe, I'm not sure if I like this idea or not, but the authors recommend that we provide group point sheets to the students, and maybe all ones each week collect and fill in the point sheet. So they get points for being on time and prepared and their behavior, and maybe they get a bonus for encouraging their group members or listening and participating. I don't like bribing and I don't like punishing, so I'm not sure how I feel about this, but I think maybe it would be a motivating source to help students work together as a team, which could be very powerful. And of course, each week someone else would be in charge of filling out that point sheet. So here's their example of the point sheet. The group members are here, the points are allotted here. They call it a pod, a performance organizational design system, rather than a team. I think group would be fine either way. And then every day they get points for what they complete and the total points. And then down here is the bonus points for whatever it is that the teacher decides is important. And then lastly, free reading time. And this might be the most important thing that I learned here. One of the ideas is to create a book pass where students take a book, look at the cover or the summary, and then decide if that's something that they want to read. They look at the readability level for themselves, and they either add it to their list or they don't. And the goal, we should tell students, is to pick easy and fun books to add to the list from the class library so that they don't feel pressured to try to read something that they are not ready for, and they are not embarrassed to read something that is at their own level. And this will just encourage them to read. And then key is to provide space, to provide time for them to actually read. So 10 minutes a day at maybe the beginning or the end of class, or maybe 20 minutes a day for 2 days a week. And I also thought this would be great for differentiation for fast finishers. If someone is done with their assignment and they have nothing to do, read. And this is so important and so huge for building vocabulary. The book lists 6.5 minutes of independent reading per day would lead to students reading about 432,000 words in 1 year. And this is the best way for students to learn vocabulary. And here are some sources that I thought were great. That is all. Thank you.